backlash tonight for congressional progressives, and it's coming from their fellow Democrats, all because of a letter they sent to President Biden urging him to negotiate with Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Now they say the letter was sent by mistake. Let's bring in a former member of the National Security Council, Michael Allen. Michael, it's always great to have you. 30 progressives signed that letter over the summertime, and I want to read part of it. Quoting here, we urge you, to President Biden, to make vigorous diplomatic efforts in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire, engage in direct talks with Russia, explore prospects for a new European security arrangement acceptable to all parties that will allow for a sovereign and independent Ukraine, and in coordination with our Ukrainian partners, seek a rapid end to the conflict. They even mention sanction relief. Michael, what do you think of this letter?
Well, this is why we shouldn't let the squad do national security. They come dangerously close to saying, let's let Putin carry the day here. Their letter was factually inaccurate in numerous places, apparently designed to make the Ukrainians seem like they had conquered less territory than they had. They called on sanctions relief to be given to the Russians, and for the United States and Russia to negotiate without the Ukrainians. So it was a bad idea. They withdrew it quickly, and it was around less than even Liz Truss is prime minister in the UK.
Which was a very short time. Are you surprised how much pushback there was against fellow Democrats? Like, for instance, Massachusetts Representative Jake Auchincloss, who did not sign the letter, by the way, said, quoting here, "This letter is an olive branch to a war criminal who's losing his war."
I thought it was a frustration of where the Democrats are. I heard so many Democrats today say, how could this happen 2 weeks before an election? It wasn't so much that they disagreed with the substance of it all. It was just, what kind of ship are we running here if we're trying to torpedo the president 2 weeks before a midterm election ballot?
Yeah, I want to move on, if I can, now to more in Ukraine, because Jennifer Griffin is reporting, and I'll get your opinion on the other side. Jennifer Griffin is reporting about this talk of Russia using a dirty bomb. Let's get to Jennifer. Jen.
Trace, an unusual flurry of phone calls between the Russian defense minister, top Russian generals, and the Pentagon after months of silence have left U.S. national security officials scratching their heads about Russia's real intent.
Russia could be setting the world up for a false flag operation using a dirty bomb, radioactive material wrapped in conventional explosives that would then give Moscow an excuse to escalate.
It can claim that it was the Ukrainians who conducted a dirty bomb attack first. That might provide them, they think, the freedom to begin using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. So I think this is a dangerous moment.
The half-life of a dirty bomb is short, 48 hours, with most of the radiation gone in 2 weeks. Radiation from a tactical nuke would likely blow back into Russia, given European wind patterns. It could be that Moscow is testing the world's reaction time. Trace?
Jen, thank you. Jennifer Griffin's information is always spot on. Michael, what do you make of it?
I thought she had it exactly right, but you know what? I see this and all the actions that the Russians have undertaken in recent weeks as all driving towards the same thing. How can we force the Europeans and maybe even the Biden administration to put pressure on the Ukrainians to go to early negotiations? Why would the Russians favor that? It's because they're getting slaughtered on the battlefield. They need to get to a ceasefire and so-called negotiations as quickly as possible so they can reconstitute and rearm. And so they're putting themselves out there as if they're going to have sincere, good faith negotiations when that's the farthest thing from their minds. They want to make it to the winter so that they survive and can start warring again against the Ukrainians in the spring.
Yeah, you talk about ceasefire, Michael. Is it your opinion that without a ceasefire that it might be time, or you believe it's time for Vladimir Putin to change his strategy for better or worse?
He should have changed his strategy weeks ago and likely retrenched to a more defensible set of lines. Instead, he kept trying to fight the Ukrainians. And the Ukrainians are winning virtually every part of the battlefield. They're making substantial gains in the south. I think it's got the Russians panicked because they know that the Ukrainians very much want to reestablish corridors down to the Black Sea. The Ukrainians see that as the biggest part of the future viability of their country, being able to trade and get to commercial ships. And the Russians are just hoping the winter comes as soon as possible and want to get negotiations going even sooner if they could.
Yeah, amazing. Michael Allen, great to see you as always, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.